My name's Cameron Gunn. I'm head of digital at Emperor. 12 years in digital and corporate communications, a lot of experience in corporate websites, brand websites, B2B, B2C campaigns, government employee campaigns, you name it on digital, I've done it. So hopefully of some use to you today to be able to talk about what we can do during this time. I'm joined today by Simon Bennison, who's a digital director at Emperor. Also has long experience in the industry and deals a lot of with our Edinburgh and Dubai based clients, has a really strong background in campaigns and SEO, and between the two of us we'll hopefully be able to answer any questions that you may have as we go through this session. In terms of who's with us today, a really good mix actually. It's great to see a lot of friends, so thank you for taking the time and being able to come and join. We've got CEOs, comms directors, people responsible for corporate reporting, heads of digital, CMOs, investor relations manager, brand managers, external affair compliance, project managers, HR, partnership, heads of department, MDs, a really cracking turnout. And we've got not just a really good breadth of roles that are here, we've got a really good breadth of the types of businesses that are here. So there's some FTSE mega caps with us, there's some mid-markets, there's some smaller AIM listed businesses, we've got private businesses, we've got government type organizations as well, and across a lot of categories. So we will try and make this as relevant as possible for you. We think the advice is relevant, doesn't matter who you are, who you work for, what sort of category and or what situation you find yourself in at the moment. Hopefully you'll be able to get something out that's useful and valuable for you. Just some housekeeping. Today's event is being recorded, but we're only going to record the presentation part of the webinar today. So when we get into the Q&A, we'll turn the recording off so we can have some Chatham House rules. Please mute your microphones. Sarah is on to make sure that that's policed well. Q&A when we get to the end of the presentation, and we will make everything available to you, including the links that we share, so you can see some of the references that we've talked about, and we'll make the recording available as well. Today's agenda is pretty simple, really. We're going to talk about three things. One is what the hell has happened in terms of COVID-19, without getting too deep and dark on that, but it's important that we set the context. We're then going to look at some real-time examples of how different businesses have responded through digital, what they've done in terms of their websites and content and platforms, social, and things like that. And finally leave you with some top tips on how you should respond. And then we've got the Q&A. If you do have questions as we go through this, feel free to add them in the chat. Sarah will be able to look at those for us, and we'll review those as we get to the end. We've already got about 5 or 6, but yeah, do feel free to add to the chat as we go through. A promise for today, I'm, with apologies to the UK government, McKinsey, and every other industry commentator, we're not going to say unprecedented times. We're not going to say the new normal. We're not going to say fundamental change. We're just a little bit bored of it. We want it to be nice and practical and pragmatic, things that you can literally take away into your organization today. And we want it to be collaborative. So whether you ask us a chat on voice, or add a question in the chat function, or you ask a question on voice, let us know. We do want it to be collaborative where we can. So let's jump straight into it and talk about what's happened. And as all of you will be very aware, everything just went a little bit turbo really quickly. That when the impact of this pandemic and coronavirus started to hit, there was some very real things that happened. Some big scary stats as well. A third of the FTSE 100's value wiped off within a month. The Office of National Statistics, as of a couple of weeks ago, did an early faster indicator survey where 25% of businesses reporting that they had temporarily closed or at least paused some of their trading. So 1 in 4 there. 1 in 5 had put some or all of their workforce on furlough. And the one that really struck home to me was around half of the people that responded to that survey, of which there was over 5,000 separate businesses, have said that coronavirus is affecting their individual well-being, their mental well-being, in a negative way. So there's a lot of impact that it's had at a macro level, at a business level, at an individual level, and it's all sort of adding up to one thing, and it's this environment of uncertainty. And as we all know, business really does not like uncertainty, because it drives a few things that we don't like, and we don't like having to deal with it. It creates an environment of discounting, of spend reduction, whether that's external or internal. It's harder to attract, the type of capital that you might be after. It's harder to attract the type of people that you might want. You've got disjointed teams internally of trying to figure out new ways of working together. You've got supply chain issues potentially. You've got all types of unwanted attention and more scrutiny than you've probably been under. And I'd also say that expectations of the PLC, of organizations, is really high. A lot of people are looking at how individual businesses react and how business as a whole reacts to this situation, down to the fact that there's actually a naughty and nice list. So you might have seen examples of this already, but this is an open source document that it kind of lists, at the moment, it's over 500 different UK businesses, that talks about who's doing good things versus who's not doing good things. I can tell you now, looking at the people that signed up for this session, that there's people on this call whose organizations are on this list. I'm not going to name and shame and things like that. It's not about that, but it's important to understand that there is this out in the world, that people are paying more attention to us. We'll share that link, so if you haven't seen it, you can do a quick check and see where you are. But one of the things that everyone's really galvanized to and sort of supported is organizations that are doing good things and not just talking about it. So this idea of acts, not ads. Some of the more famous examples, I mean, we could have picked a trillion here, but you look at the NHS, you look at PrEP, and the discounted food and services for NHS workers. The same with Addison Lee, offering free rides for essential workers and for the NHS workers as well. And then you've seen a lot of brands pivot into different product lines or different services and things they've been able to offer. So BrewDog being able to create hospital grade sanitizer, hand sanitizer, using their existing distilleries, manufacturing. The hand sanitizer is in the BrewDog bottle, which I quite like as well. So they've been able to get onto that quite quickly. And I think the first example, or one of the first recognized examples, was LVMH in France, which very, very quickly started creating hand sanitizer for the French health service over there. And the thing that I really do love about this is LVMH is a luxury brand, and owns a stable of luxury brands, and that label that they've put on that bottle, I think that's a label that's going to become iconic, because it's so not a luxury thing, but I know that that's going to be turned into t-shirts at some stage, because they were quick to act, they didn't hesitate. And these are the things that people are really galvanizing towards and applauding. Not every organization is in a place to do this. I'm not suggesting that you all find what your niche is and how you would do it, but it is something that hopefully you've been talking about back at base, to say, where can we add value beyond what we've normally done to support health services, to support people in this time, which is really, really an interesting approach for businesses at the moment. When we look at digital, we're kind of at a stage now where digital has never been more crucial, more critical for organizations. If we look at even just the external lens, whether it's customers, media, etc. Keith Weed, ex-Rockstar CMO of Unilever, had this great quote that was around, we've probably got the next 15 years of people to come online within the last 15 days. We've got more people, online shopping for the first time, trying to get in touch with organizations digitally for the first time. And that's going to speed up this sort of transition into a more digital way of doing things, whether it's customer service, whether it is services and propositions, whether it is, different generations, stepping into digital for the first time. So externally, it has a big impact. And then internally, I mean, it's pretty obvious that it's had a massive impact in terms of the last 3 weeks, and certainly at least the next 3 as well. And we kind of looked at Zoom as an indicator of the type of change that might be. And even just in the last couple of weeks, just on Google Play, not even looking at desktop, not even looking at the App Store, the Apple App Store, 50 million separate installs just on Google Play on Android, for Zoom, a 67% increase in their user base. A company that, 8 months ago was worth $16 billion is now worth $42 billion. So you can see that the working from home thing is really impacted it all. And obviously, live from my lounge room, you can sort of see how that's going on for us as well. It has affected Emperor. But there's also been, and I'm kind of wary of how to say this, but there's been some positive organizational things that have happened as part of this, if we separate the horrific health thing just for the moment, where eConsultancy ran a survey a couple of weeks ago that was asking marketeers and communications people about what has happened over the last couple of weeks that you will take forward irrespective of the pandemic winding down. And the things that were highlighted as really positive was new ways of working, new processes, innovation in terms of marketing or branding, innovation of customer comms, new products or services, where you can see the vast majority of businesses are looking to carry forward some of these things already. And I'm sure that you probably have in your heads already a list of things that you do want to continue to take forward. And only, the 15-ish% of businesses saying, well, we want it to be business as usual. We're not going to take anything forward here. So it's interesting to see that it's not, all the doom and gloom. There are things that we can take forward and improve as organizations using digital to underpin that. And it kind of, the always hilarious Tom Fishburne talking has encapsulated it really quite well, that all this talk around digital transformation, innovation, who owns it? Is it a CEO job? Is it a head of digital job? Is it a head of IT job? It kind of doesn't matter all of a sudden really quickly. COVID-19 has sort of forced all of us to get to this space really quickly, and we've all had to learn on the spot really, really fast. So it's been an interesting change for all of us, and digital has really underpinned a lot of the change. But let's get into some of the practical elements and look about how businesses have responded over this time, and things we can learn. Now, when we look at digital, without getting too highfalutin, we sort of look at it in 4 different tiers, or a digital ladder, something that we've stolen with pride from the Design Council and some old school design references. The digital kind of impacts in 4 different layers. We've kind of got the communications layer, where we're talking about our websites, campaigns, our content, PR, what we're creating and sharing on digital channels. We've then got experience design, the services that we offer, the environments that we experience brands in, whether that's a customer experience, employee experience, how can digital impact that for the positive? And so more of a broader viewpoint. We've then got the organizational design phase, where we're using digital to improve our processes, our systems, our culture. Maybe there's a new digital only proposition that's now relevant for your organization. And then we step right up into the transformative societal impact of digital. We're talking about systematic change. We're talking about, completely new ways of connecting with each other and doing commerce. We are only concentrating today at the communications element of this. Those other conversations are a bit too broad, because there's some great examples that we can learn from. The examples that you're about to see, are from some big businesses, some smaller businesses, and there's a lot that we could have shown you, but we did want to show you some things that have we thought would be particularly interesting and valuable to you. And we're going to start looking at RB. Now, RB, for those that don't know, FTSE 10 type business that owns some really famous brands like Dettol and Nurofen and Lysol. Their purpose is to nurture, or their new purpose is to nurture and protect, and they're obviously heavily invested in hygiene and health and consumer health. It's what they do. So then they have to be a big part of this. Now, what they've done in terms of responding online, if we just look at their corporate website, they've got a separate coronavirus hub, what I would call a hub, that talks a little bit about what we're doing in terms of playing our part. And then it gets very quickly into the practical elements of here's how we can stop respiratory viruses from spreading. So, a nice little video there that gives an overview, a short, sharp overview of how individuals can act. They take the time a little bit to talk about what they're doing as an organization in terms of investments and donations. But the things that I really did like, and where I think RB has absolute permission to play, is to have this element here where we're taking expert advice from doctors and other medical experts around what coronavirus is and what it means, and then having a latest news hub that they're able to pull everything together and share everything all on one page or in one destination. And for me, that's really important when a business is so intrinsically linked to the virus itself, or to have where they can have a positive impact on the virus. You would expect a business like this to have a point of view and to be able to share that quite openly and quite willingly with their stakeholders, with their audiences. Let's have a look at Capita. Now, Capita are almost baked in to UK infrastructure, and there's a lot that we could talk about in terms of how they've responded on their website. And they kind of talk about this idea as business unusual, and have done a great job in terms of prominent message from the CEO, showing a little bit of there's about a 5-minute video where he's talking about not just to shareholders, but talking to customers, talking to employees as well, about his thoughts on coronavirus and what it might mean for Capita, and the things that they're doing. But the thing that we really did like was them being able to lean into one of their business lines, which is about data and insight and monitoring, and have been able to offer a dashboard or a couple of dashboards that's all about coronavirus. So what they've got here is, this is something that a dashboard that is aligned with data to do with the virus itself. So the impact that it's having in terms of different countries. So we can sort of select the countries that we want. We've got UK by default. What date, so we can track the spread, how many confirmed cases, how many reported deaths have there been, cumulative totals, etc. You've got a nice little ticker thing down here. And then additionally, they've kind of got the communications lens on this, where they're pulling in data from social media and from news sources, where they're looking at what is the sentiment around the conversation to do with coronavirus. As you can see, fear, sadness, anticipation, really high there. The FAQs that are most being asked around coronavirus, the type of terms that are coming up, what news sources are dominating that conversation. There's a little heat map there that talks about where people are doing things. We like this for a couple of reasons. One, it's useful for them, as in this is a business line, and they're able to demonstrate their business line in a way that's really useful, and it doesn't feel like that they're ramming something down your throat inappropriately. It's interesting, it's interesting to click through this dashboard. It's interesting to see the data. It's really useful for them also from a brand point of view, that it helps. This is an organization that wants to transfer from, you know, a support services business into a consultancy business, or at least address that balance. And so that helps demonstrate that. And also, it's really interesting to click through. A lot of our clients talk about improving things like time on site, retention of users, helping to encourage more exploration. This is what it takes. You know, it takes features and functions like this that are interesting and valuable to the people that you're trying to target. A really good example, I think, and case study of being able to take something and make it useful for the people that you're trying to communicate with. Right, BP is another, there's a lot that we could talk about with BP, but I am only going to focus on one particular element. As an organization, and a massive organization with incredible global scale, they are not just doing, you know, one initiative, one thing. What they're able to do, if we get a help better or quicker recovery from coronavirus. Now, whether that is celebrating individuals within their organization, so some case studies and people case studies of how they're volunteering, whether it's about how they're using their resources, whether it's distribution, supercomputer. You've got some examples here all the way down from, what's that, 16th of April, down until the 21st of March. You've got some donation things there as well. So if you are an organization that's doing many things, I think it's really nice to show in a timeline how this can work as well. You know, BP, you know, massive organization, big communications team, not appropriate for everyone. But it was something that we hadn't seen anyone else do. And we thought it was quite nice to map responses to time, and a good job there by BP. We then get on to PwC. Now, a lot of clients have been asking us about, is it appropriate to market during these times? And we're going to talk about, that's one of the questions that comes in the Q&A that we'll talk about. PwC, you know, really well-known brands. Now, they have turned, as a consultancy, they have turned the business impact of Corona into a diagnostic tool, where you as an organization or an individual that works for an organization can run through, you know, it takes about 15 minutes, a PwC diagnostic to understand where COVID-19 might impact your business, the types of things that you need to be thinking about, which they make free and available. And it's a nice experience to go through, actually. They've done a really good job just from a digital craft point of view. There's all, you know, they talk about the categories that they look at, from supply chain, liquidity, tax, you know, strategy and brand. It's nice to see that in there. You can filter the insights that they have from a global down to a local region. So they're obviously creating a lot of thought leadership. It's what they do. But really focusing on the diagnostic tool, you obviously have to give them contact information. So it is a big lead generation piece for them. And I think that's okay. I think they're giving something of genuine value, that it's okay that they're still using that as lead gen. When it becomes a little bit less shaky is when, like all of you are, you know, you're getting those unsolicited emails bombarding in from things that aren't really relevant at the moment, or aren't really valuable for you as a business, or just not appropriate in the time of Corona. So I think PwC have struck the right balance here between creating a digital experience that is useful, but will also create a bunch of marketing qualified leads for them. And I think that's okay. SimilarWeb, which is someone that we work with a lot of times. Now, this is a company that specializes in data. And let's have a look at what they've done. Now, if you do find yourself where you've got something unique or interesting that you can communicate about the impact of Corona on industry or business, we think it's a great opportunity to spin that into something that's digitally interesting, whether it's an infographic, whether it is a digital feature like this that we'll see too. It's worth stating that when this first launched, it was a PDF. So a week and a half ago, this was a PDF. Nothing wrong with doing an MVP and then building behind it. You know, this is changing every day. For those that don't know SimilarWeb, they do a lot of web analytics and customer data and surveys. And what they've looked at here is just the different keywords as it relates to coronavirus, where you can see trends for things like social distancing, hand washing. What else have we got there? A coronavirus map, traffic to related coronavirus websites. So they do have some ability to see the volume of traffic going to different websites. So whether it's the WHO, European Center for Disease Prevention and Control, CDCP in the US, that you can sort of see there's been peaks. That's kind of interesting. Impact by sector. So those of you that are in different sectors, so whether it's travel and tourism, you can see health, news, and government there as well. The type of impact that webs, that's happened, and really this whole experience, again, similar to the Capita thing, works in a couple of ways. One, it's a demonstration of what they do and the type of data that they have. And two, it's just really interesting. We also applaud the fact that they started off as the PDF, like I said, and then were willing to build on and on. So if you are a business that has access to unique insight or unique data, and that's something that you're comfortable sharing, this is a good opportunity to help create value to your users using digital to do that. So we've talked about some really big companies. I want to focus on, not just, the mega guys, just given the types of organizations that we have with us today as well. Can Energy is an energy business that has kind of done what we would expect to happen, almost what the standard is. And this is their corporate website that you can see in front of you. And this is their homepage. As we scroll through, there's a recognition that Corona has happened on the homepage, so that there's too many websites at the moment that don't have any content whatsoever. We can very quickly get to an operational update. So this is probably more of value to the investor audience and things like that. But the thing that we like is it's promoted on the homepage. It's really clear in terms of what they're talking about. It's been updated for a period in time, contact information, almost like a typical RNS release to the market. And then additionally to that, it also just has an update on what's happening with our officers. Short, sharp. There's nothing wrong with this. We shouldn't be, we're not all RBs or BPs or whatever it might be. But this is kind of the standard that we would expect most organizations to hit. Let's have a look at New Day. So for those that don't know who New Day are, they are a business that specializes in consumer credit. Digital has given them a chance to support their customers, and they've done that by doing an FAQ. Now, I think an FAQ is a really good device or mechanic to serve all of your stakeholders. New Day probably more of a focus on their immediate customers, given that it's a financial implication. We like it for a couple of ways. One, it's sort of hopefully will reassure customers or reassure journalists, employees, if you go down that route as well. It will hopefully negate their need to get in touch with you, either through a call center that may be at limited capacity, through email, through social media. You can hopefully resolve some of those problems that are coming up now. And we think it's just a really, it's not overly worked. It's just a really nice example to say, what do I do if I can't have payments? I've canceled my holiday. What advice do you have? It's covering those really basic things, but are really important that we cover. So FAQ is something you should definitely consider. Not all of us have consumer driven businesses, but it's just as relevant for B2B, for communicating with investors, pension holders, employees. We think it's a nice opportunity for as well. So a good digital mechanic there. Let's have a look at social media, and we're going to look at what Shell has done, and for a couple of reasons. We think visibility of C-suite and CEO is really important, and Ben van Beurden is Shell CEO, and he's been quite active, as you can imagine a lot of CEOs are at the moment, in terms of getting content, in this instance, out on LinkedIn. You can see, this, it feels a bit bleak. Don't worry, this is what we're You know, we care about you as individuals. Some reassuring messages, well, from who's the CEO of BP, responding to that. So, you know, not something that we probably would have seen in the past, if I'm honest. Competitive, you know, CEOs, particularly in oil and gas, commenting on each other's content, probably a demonstration of the type of environment we're in at the moment. So not only is he doing the videos from home, sharing messages of support for his employees, we need to be comfortable that, you know, it's not going to be the same production values. It's not going to be the, oh, look at the time. It's not going to be the same production values. That's okay. There's another session that Sarah will be able to share with you that you probably would have got already, with Nick Havas, our head of video, talking about how to create videos while we're at home. But we think it's a really good way to humanize the CEO a little bit, keep them nice and visible. And it doesn't just have to be the CEO. There's a lot of examples of companies that are now using, you know, Zoom recordings or phone recordings to be their adverts on television, to be, you know, creating content for their website throughout. And it's just a good way to demonstrate that you're visible, you're available, and you're doing the things, you know, you're still there for them. And the very last example that we're going to talk about is, what do we do for employees? Now, we work in a creative agency. As you can imagine, we're kind of set up for working at a desk and working from home. It hasn't been that, it hasn't been such a systemic shift for Emperor as an organization. And for a lot of you as well, you'll kind of have working for home setups already. But there are a lot of organizations out there where you don't have desk-based employees. You know, your intranet is a bit patchy. You know, it kind of works, it doesn't work, you're not able to get in touch with them. So we've heard of clients that have, you know, mega big WhatsApp groups of, you know, thousands of people to try and get some of that real-time communication going. Not sure if that's the most sustainable model, if I'm honest. So something that we've done on behalf of a couple of our clients is to look at creating an employee hub that can sit literally on the website. The ability to password protect that, we can turn that on and off. And what you're looking at is a wireframe that we've done and are rolling out to some different clients, where it's only for employees. So you can get a little, you know, message up the top here, some useful resources, whether it's, you know, people that are on furlough, or just people that can't work from home. You know, maybe it's learning resources, maybe it's, you know, financial support resources, upcoming events. So Steve Kemp, CEO of Emperor, does weekly calls with the entire organization. Also does calls with, you know, customers and suppliers and things like that. So a great opportunity to show when the next contact event is happening, or just where to get in touch. You know, whether that's a CEO video, latest updates, the Q&A in there as well. So you shouldn't forget about your external platforms as being a good way to talk to your employees as well, particularly if you don't have the infrastructure in place at the moment to be able to talk about some of these things directly with your employees. So, right, just one thing to wrap it up before we take it to the Q&A. How should you respond? So, yeah, health check. We don't understand your individual, you know, category, business situation. You might be, you know, feeling okay. You might be feeling not great. So we've kind of gone quite broad in terms of what our top tips are, but we do think that they apply in every situation. First point, before you do anything, particularly in communications at the moment, you just need to ask yourself 3 questions. Why this? Why now? And why us? So why is this important that we communicate this? I'm sure all of you would have got those, you know, hundreds of emails off every restaurant that you've ever visited within your last, you know, 15 years, has sent you an email letting you know that they're okay and they're going to be shutting down for a while. You know, why is that important that went out? You need to ask yourself that question. Why are you saying this? You know, and it's not to put you off saying anything, but you should be able to answer that confidently. You know, why now? Why isn't this the appropriate time to put this message out? And why is your organization the best person this comes from? So if you're going to talk about some wider industry issues. You know, why is that appropriate for you? It's just a good health check. We haven't seen that there have been missteps, and we didn't want to highlight those. We will pick on one. Just Eat yesterday or the day before did a big social post around creating a power hour for all their colleagues, where they can't be interrupted by phone calls or messages or emails, and it happens in the middle of the day, and the internet very quick to reassure them that they just invented a lunch hour. So there has been a few little missteps. We can get in a bit of a bubble. If you can answer why this, why now, why us, and answer that confidently, absolutely proceed. Second point, so mind the gap. Make sure that your communications and actions are aligned. There's no point talking about you know, support, you know, all in it together, while you're, you know, letting go a bunch of people. You know, that's probably not appropriate. You know, there's no point talking about all the things that you're going to do and then not following through on that. It's kind of comms 101, but you do want to make sure that your comms and your actions are aligned. So what are you doing as an organization, and how can communications enhance that or help spread that message? Number 3, do say something. There's far too many organizations at the moment, when we were reviewing different websites and things like that, that haven't actually even acknowledged that this is something that has happened. You need to acknowledge that coronavirus or this pandemic has happened. It's had an impact on your business. You need to communicate that with clarity. You need to communicate the things that you're doing as an organization. It doesn't need to be War and Peace. It doesn't need to be multiple hubs. You know, we look at the Can Energy example. That's absolutely appropriate for them and their business, because they've acknowledged it. It's really clear in what they're doing, and it's relevant for the people they're talking to. So a lot of their information externally was around their investor audience. And that's completely, you know, it was relevant for the people that they wanted to communicate with at the time. So do make sure that you do say something, and acknowledge what's happened. Be really clear in terms of what you're doing or the impact that you think it might have, and make sure that you're tailoring that for the different audiences that you have. You know, customers aren't going to want investor information, you know, and vice versa. If you do have the time, and I know everyone's, some people are really busy, some people have some more time, but do take the opportunity to review and reset. So take the opportunity to review, you know, your website, your channels, your competitors. What are they doing? Take the time to review, what's your strategy? Is it still relevant? Does it still align with what the business objectives are? Are the KPIs still relevant? How could you tweak? It does give you an opportunity to take a breath and be able to review what you've done and ensure that that's still fit for purpose. Your comms strategy should be timeless in a way, irrespective of what's happening. You're going to have a crisis communications or a reactive communications phase at the moment, but your strategy should be timeless. A great time to stress test that at the moment. And if you are interested in support and help on that, obviously we're happy to talk. And the last point, and I think it's really important, is let's just go easy on yourselves. You know, there is no playbook for what's happened or what is happening. And for us as communicators and leaders and people that are trying to attract people into the business, you have to give yourself permission to go, you know what, this is what I'm going to try. I've asked myself the 3 questions at the top. It might be perfect. It might not be perfect. You know, it mightn't be exactly what I want. You know, not everything has to be brilliantly perfect at the moment. We've seen it with those that were quick to react. We've seen it with some of the CEO videos that have been quick to react, the production values we've talked to. So do, particularly when, you know, half of us have talked about the mental health implications of Corona, you know, give yourself a rest. You're doing fine. There's just some fundamentals that we need to adhere to.